So if you follow this news outlet for any long period of time, you'll know that we have focused extensively on the issue of justice reform, and particularly fixing the badly broken way that judges are selected in the Palmetto State. Too often we have seen powerful lawyer legislators exert their influence to get outcomes that are not in the interest of victims, not in the interest of public safety. I'm joined today by Larry Williams, who is one of those victims. And Larry, before we get into the story of what's happened to your family, of everything that you've been through, not only the tragedy, but in the aftermath, trying to fix the system, I want to start out by just getting a sense of who you are and letting our folks know a little bit about you.
Okay. Well, I'm Lori Williams. I am a real estate agent in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I'm originally from Lancaster, South Carolina. Born and raised there, along with my brother, my only brother, only sibling. Just a girl having a good time, living life until tragedy strikes, and then I get thrown into a broken system that we know is broken, and then now my life is kind of taken another turn. I've kind of figured out maybe what my purpose is, to fight for other victims, along with us being victimized as a family, and for my brother.
Well, I want to go through what happened to your brother, Larry Vaughan, a decorated career law enforcement officer. And we're going to talk about what happened to him in a minute. But before we do, you're talking about growing up in Lancaster. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about your relationship with your brother, Larry, growing up.
Well, Larry was 4.5 years older than me, and when mom got pregnant, he wanted a baby sister, and I love that. I mean, I love this anyway, but he wanted a baby sister, so Mama gave him some names to choose from. So he named me. So it was kind of like that McDonald's commercial about the little sister always following the big brother around, and whatever. If he wore fatigues, I wanted fatigues. Mom wanted me in lace, but I wanted to be just like my brother. But we were real close. We lived kind of out in the country when we were being brought up. So it was just me and him. It wasn't a lot of, we weren't in a neighborhood until we got older. So it was just me and Larry, So we were really extremely close. So we played together, then driver's license, football, cheerleading, he never complained about having to take me to school or pick me up from school. It developed my love of music because I wanted to be just like him, and going to school and listen to his types of music and stuff, things that we bonded over, even though we were 4.5 years apart. He never alienated me out, little sister or any of that. He kept me, under his wing, and all his friends were my friends, and we were just really, really close. If, he'd get a drum set, he'd let me play it, never was, we were separate. We were an unbreakable bond, and as we got older, that got even closer, because we became adults. We weren't just two kids living in the house, and, I got to take the little sister somewhere before I go on my date, or whatever. So he was my best friend. I mean, whatever I was going through and not making the best decisions in my life sometimes, and, in relationships or whatever, he always supported me. He never, talked down to me. He was always supportive, always helped me move. And he'd be like, you better find somebody else to help you move next time. This is the last time I'm helping you move. I'm not lifting any more furniture. And a couple years later, there he would be with the truck and trailer, So we were just really close, and I always knew that he had my back and I had his, and he was my protector. And, you grow up, and, you know each other's secrets, and everything about the family, and you just bond. Like I said, you just when you spend so much time together, even if you are siblings, it was my first best friend. I mean, he was the first man I loved, because our biological father had left when, at an early age. So he was my best friend, so we bonded and were really, really close, and until, our stepdad came along and adopted us, and, everything was wonderful, but we just, I don't know, brothers are special, they protect their sisters, but Lord, them sisters protect them brothers. And nothing like them. So,
and as he began his career in law enforcement, advanced in law enforcement, obviously very proud of him and
absolutely,
work he did.
Absolutely, he loved it. He was going to Winthrop for a 5-year degree in something totally different. And about 3 years in, he was like, "Hey, Mom, I don't want to do this. I want to be a cop." And he's like, "You always told me that you wanted me to be happy, and this is what's going to make me happy." So. Absolutely terrified that he was a cop. You go to bed at night with a brother. You wake up in the morning and you hope you still have a brother, for 30 years of that, So you breathe lightly when they retire and you're like, he did it. We made it. And,
made it through.
Yeah. So
let me ask you this. His colleagues, some of the words they used to describe him: good, genuine, respected, honest. Said he never met a stranger. Gregarious, outgoing. That's the Larry you knew as well?
Yeah. He was funny, and he was not really a dry sense of humor, but just really funny. Larry was very protective, and that's what made him a good cop is, he kept you at arm's length till they figured you out, And then once you were in, he loved you. He would go to the end of the earth for you, friends, family, he'd do anything for anybody. But he was honest, and he had a huge heart. But he was tender-hearted too, That's why he kept you at length till he figured you out, because, he's a rare breed. He's just a genuine. Hey, this is me. You like me, you don't like me, it's okay. I still like you, But he'd tell you like it was. If you didn't want to know, don't ask him, because he's gonna tell you,
So 30 years service, protecting his community. And you felt a little bit of relief when he retired, figuring, okay, he made it through.
Yeah.
My brother's all right. But obviously, summer of 2021, all that came crashing down for you, didn't it?
Yep. I had just spent the week before with him. My birthday is July the 18th, and he died on the 23rd. So I had just hit 50. So I always got a call from him, and but the week before I had come up from the beach and went to Charlotte and spent some time with him in Rock Hill at his apartment and stuff, and I can tell you everything about that last conversation, that last day, what he looked like, how he laughed, how he smelled, what his hair looked like, But yeah, that was a shocker. Never thought my brother would die, especially not like he did.
How did you find out? What were you told?
Well, my cousin lives in Aner, and she had received a phone call from Larry's ex-wife, and my cousin had called me and said that I had just moved into a new place about 6 months prior, and she was like, I'm at the beach, can I come see your little apartment? And I was like, yeah, which I thought was kind of odd, because Dawn doesn't come to the beach often. And so she came over, and had just gotten off the phone with my parents. They were going out to eat, and I had visited a friend in Pawleys Island that had just come home from the hospital. So when she got there, she came in and I offered her a seat and everything. And we made small talk about how she liked my apartment. And she said, will you come sit down with me? And I said, no, I won't. I said, because I just talked to my mama and daddy, and you're not here to tell me anything about them. And I said, is it my brother? And she nodded her head, and she said, yeah. And I said, is he dead? And she said, yeah. And she said that she was told that, which it doesn't really matter what she was told, it was all a lie, but that he was found in the floor of his bathroom, and they thought maybe he had had a heart attack. Well, my grandfather died, had heart issues, so it wasn't far-fetched to think, you know. So, I called my mom. She was like, I was like, can you come to the house? And I had at that time an older dog, and she thought something had happened to my dog. And she was like, is little John okay? And I was like, Mama, he's fine. I just need you to come to my house. And because, my cousin was like, I can't tell Aunt Sherry that her baby's dead, So,
you had to tell her. So,
yeah, my cousin Dawn was there when they got there. And my mom was just like me, she come in and she was tickled to death when she come to the door and she saw my dog, because I don't have children. So little John was like their grandbaby. And so when she came in and she walked around the corner to the living room and she saw Dawn there, she knew something was wrong. So so then you go through all that and, you have to get things together because we've got to make a 3.5-hour drive, and
but at this point, you don't know anything.
We don't know. We don't know anything. My brother is deceased.
Natural causes. Okay.
So, Mom's first instinct was, where's Tyler and Parker, Larry's 2 girls? Are they okay? Do they know who's with them? Because their mother was at the beach. So Mama's concern was who's with them? Do they know? So we got together and everything and loaded everything up in the car and headed to Rock Hill. And, I just say by divine grace, I'm driving, my mama's sitting in the back seat. I call a couple people that I need to call that I know are really close with our family and let them know what's going on. I'm like, I don't know anything other than Larry's gone. When I get to Rock Hill and I figure everything out, I'll call you. Well, then my best friends, I'm talking to them on the way up, and I'm like, I don't know. So it hits the news, and people are calling me that know my brother had been murdered, but are not telling me because they are realizing that I don't know and that my mom doesn't know and my daddy doesn't know. They're like, what's going on? And I'm like, I'm trying to get there. But, when we got in the car to go, I told Mom, I said, I'm not going to kill us getting to Rock Hill. I said, because Larry's gone, It's not like we're rushing to a bedside to say goodbye. He's gone, So after about 5 or 6 phone calls, they're like, have you found anything out yet? No, nobody's telling us anything, My mom's in the back seat flipping through Facebook, whatever. And like I say, divine intervention, because all of that was on there and she didn't see any of it. None of that popped up, So after I make a couple phone calls and then news is traveling and, CN2 is doing interviews outside of Larry's apartment, and WSOC and whoever else is there, we get to Rock Hill about 10 o'clock. And, like I said, we didn't know anything, so we didn't know there was an urgency. So I was like, I knew we were having to go to Larry's ex-wife's house. So it was like, I need to take little John, my dog, check us into the hotel because I don't know how long we're going to be over there. And so anyway, the girls or my nieces are calling my mom like, when are y'all getting here? I'm like, we're 5 minutes away. So when we get to the house, they meet us in the yard. And of course, by that time, there's several of Larry's friends there that meet us there. And my oldest niece, she's like, well, y'all come inside and need to tell you something we found out about Daddy. And so we go in and, sit down, full room of people. Some we know, some we don't, and she's, she's like, I just need to tell you some things we learned about Daddy. And I'm like, what? And my mom and dad don't hear very well. So they, kind of crowded around, and she's sitting on the coffee table in front of me. She's like, Daddy was murdered. And I'm like, I said some words that I probably shouldn't repeat. Cause I was gut punched, murdered. Mama didn't hear. My dad was leaning over my shoulder. So she repeated it again. And, that's when they figured out what she had said. And I said the same thing out of my mouth again. And it was just, I'm looking around the room. And I know it sounds crazy, but I was looking around the room for Ashton Kutcher to jump out and say, you've been punked, because I'm like, there's no... Murdered? What are you talking about? My brother died of a heart attack or something. Murdered? What are you talking about? I kept scanning the room for somebody to make eye contact with me to say, you're in a bad dream, And
when did it start to dawn on you what had actually happened? When did you start to get the facts of the case?
After about, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes, my dad and mom were crying. They were consoling each other. I was still in shock. I was just like, so after the emotion calmed for a moment, I kind of scanned the room and I was like, what happened? What has happened? And why is she telling us? Why is she telling us? So, Larry's friend and coworker, who found him, he was found because that morning he was supposed to go to his best friend's house out in York, and he didn't show up. And he wouldn't answer his phone, and he wouldn't answer text messages. So they were worried about him. And they were going to go check on him. And Jason's wife was like, just call Alan. Larry lived across the street from the police department on Main Street, Rock Hill, South Carolina, So they call, and Alan Canty goes and does a wellness check. Well, he lived in an apartment that you had to be swiped in, into the building. So after they get all that, Alan goes to the door and finds him, So we got most of the information from Alan, which that just broke my heart.
Said it was a devastating scene.
Yeah. And,
did you have to hear all of the...
Well, yes, because the next...
Did you want to know?
I want to know everything. Me and my mom are ready for the file. We've asked for the file, and, they've told us we can see it, look through it, read it, look at the pictures, whatever, anytime we want to. We haven't had the opportunity to do that yet, but we will. And we've been told not to. It's like you don't want to see stuff like that. But basically, yes, they found Larry on Friday evening. The guy was arrested.
And the guy also a law enforcement
officer. Former Chester deputy that had been fired twice from Chester. The last time for driving drunk in his patrol vehicle and wrecking into a daycare center parking lot. Talk about a perfect storm. But anyway,
did you have any idea who this guy was?
No,
Was there any
no.
sense that he and
No.
your brother knew each other?
No, because my brother's a very private person. I mean, once a cop, always a cop. I mean, that's just how it is. His children didn't have access to his apartment, you know. I would pull up, even the week before I'd pull up, I'm like, Larry, I'm out front, you know, and he'd be okay. And, you know, I'd hand him my purse and everything over the thing, and then I would walk up to the door and he would come and let me in, you know. So Larry never would have invited a stranger into his home. I mean, that just, you know, not unless you were with somebody that he's known for a while, you know. So it's all of that didn't make any sense, you know. And it was like, so the next day when we go for the bond hearing, the original bond hearing, you know, they ask him. At that time, we were in a room and we watched him on a video monitor, so we weren't actually in the same room with him. And the judge asked him, you know, if he wanted to say anything to the victim's family, and he was like, I didn't mean for it to go that far. Well, to me, that's an admission of what you did, you know.
And that was straight from the mouth of Evan Hawthorne.
The date, less than, you know, 24 hours from...
Who has been charged with murder. So after we do that with him, we go up a couple days later and meet with the sheriff's office. And that's when they basically read their report of the crime scene and how it, you know, how they believe it all took place, and, you know, how they found out where Larry had been and who had been with him, and the video surveillance from the bar. And, you know, the two had been drinking.
Yeah, they had been drinking, and you know, this Evan comes in and sits down at the bar and just starts buying everybody, you know, buying Larry. I guess they get to talking. I know there's some video footage of what was said at the bar, and Evan, you know, they're having a good time. He's buying shots for people and for Larry. And Larry wasn't a big liquor drinker. Now, he'd drink you on their table drinking beer. I mean, but that was, you know, that was what he enjoyed doing. But, you know, he had been at that establishment. It was 500 yards from his house. I mean, he went there often. The last time we had lunch, we got food from there, you know. So, I haven't heard the video yet, but Evan goes after Larry. Larry pushes him. Both of them were intoxicated. Larry falls down. He falls down. People from the bar help Larry up. The guy gets kicked out. They go outside, and you can see Larry go out there, hug it out, and then take off towards home, him in the barn. So it's...
so when they leave, everything's copacetic.
Yep, and he's gone. You know, they had told him to leave. So, but... You know, I've always said you would stand more likely to have a disagreement with my brother when he was sober versus when he was drinking, because he just had a good time. You know, he was happy sober, and he was happy-go-lucky when he was drinking. You know, you work in law enforcement for 30 years, you get called grumpy. I'm sure you do. I mean, you work with the worst part of life, you know, but...
Well, the evidence against Hawthorne obviously is overwhelming.
Is exponential. I mean...
They've got him leaving your brother's apartment covered in blood.
Yes.
I want to walk you through, obviously, at the initial bond hearing, bond is denied. He is locked up.
He was bonded with a magistrate judge, which they cannot set a bond on a murder charge. So he was going to be denied bond anyway. Because it was on a Saturday morning.
Right. And
then the next Wednesday, we were scheduled for a hearing for probable cause. Well, he waived the right to that because they said, you know, the evidence was overwhelming, so he waived his right to that. And then we were supposed to go to another hearing, and they decided not to do that. So that was in July, and we did not go to another bond hearing until January, because he's entitled to bond hearing every 6 months unless there's something that happens in between there. So in January of 2022, we have bond hearing. He is again denied bond. And then July rolls around, and we're thinking it's time for him to ask for another bond. So his 6 months was up on July 13th. July 14th, I had called to see if he had requested it. He had requested it. So usually when the first time he requested it was only 2 weeks later, and we were in court. Well, 2 weeks later, we didn't have anything about court. So I kept calling to find out. I was like, not that we have anything pressing or anything, but we have lives, we just kind of want an idea when we're supposed to be there, Nothing. So then October, we get a call. 24 hours later, no, it's not going to happen. 2 days later, we get another call. No, it's not going to happen. November, we get a call, and it's like we've come to the conclusion that this is going to be postponed until after the first of the year because of the holidays. The girl, Parker was in college. She had exams, getting her out of school, this, that, and other. So we were all good with that. And then Friday afternoon at 5:15 after business hours, we get a telephone call that we have to be in court at 9 o'clock in York County that following Tuesday morning for a bond hearing. So we show up. He comes in with a fresh cut, swagger, everything goes different.
Like he knew what was going to happen, didn't he?
You did know what was going to happen. And, and it happened when Kevin Brackett and Kevin Tolson, when they were out of town, so they had to speak via Zoom. So it was all orchestrated, really, really good. The judge had said we're going to wait till the first of the year, and then Todd Rutherford works his magic to where he gets a judge that says, "Oh, I'll hear it next week." And
while the solicitor and sheriff are out of town.
Yes. And, and then you come in, and then, you kind of got an idea. You can kind of, looking back on it, I didn't want to believe it, but from the testimony that was given, you was like, this is really happening, And then the judge, Judge Alex Kinlaw, gets offended because, he's like, this is the first I've heard about this case. Well, if you're a judge and you're getting ready to either give bond or deny bond to a murderer, an admitted murderer, you would think that the oath that he had taken and the knowledge that he has, that he would want to look at the file and kind of see who he's going to be passing judgment down on, whether he's going to let him out or whether he's going to keep him. And from the bench in front of everybody, it was like, it's the first I've heard about this. I don't know anything about it. And it was like, that is a bald-faced lie. Because if that's the truth, you're actually doing injustice to us. And to Evan Hawthorne, as bad as I hate to say it, because that's what you're supposed to do, But as it went down, I get up there and beg, please do not let him out. Do not give him bond, And then he gets bond. He gets a nothing bond. And then he gets an ankle monitor and an alcohol SKU. And, his ankle monitor is surveillanced, is monitored by his bail bondsman, who just happens to be related to him. Is that not a conflict of interest too? I mean, it's just.
So you, as a victim, the prosecution, the local law enforcement, all told this judge, who admitted he'd never heard anything about the case, all of you said no bond, and yet he gives the bond. Let me ask you about this. Obviously, we now know what happened. We now know that that outcome was predetermined. I want to ask you how you felt when you first heard the recordings from the jailhouse between Hawthorne and his mom. Talking about getting in front of the right judge,
Right.
talking about rigging the system, how the attorney had done it so that he would appear.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm not going to say I'm quoting it because I don't want to say that, but to the gist of it is, you know, if he says he can get us the right judge, then if we have to wait a little bit longer, it's okay. It's okay, Mom.
The right judge.
You know, and I was infuriated because we know the system's broken, you know, and like I said, everybody knows the system's broken. You don't realize how bad the system's broken until you're plopped in the middle of it with no other choice, and you really see how broken it is. And then you see where the money influence comes in, and the influence between the lawyer legislators and the judges, because those lawyer legislators that are on the JMSC are picking those judges that they're arguing cases in front of, and there's influence there, whether it be money or, you know, I'm not, you know, scratch my back, I'll scratch your back or whatever. But I was appalled that even though you know that it's crooked and it's broken, that when it's coming out of the mouth of the people, the person who brutally took my brother from me and his mama and his daddy and his two girls and everybody who loved him, and you can't do anything about it. And you're like, how is this possible? How is this possible? And is anybody going to do anything about it? I mean, is anybody going to do anything about it? And then you complain about it, and it's like, nobody listens to you, except you, of course. But it's like, where do you air your grievance? And then who holds it accountable? And obviously it doesn't, because it happened in broad daylight in a courtroom by sworn people that took oaths not to do those things.
Well, let's talk about that process, about that accountability, about what do you do? Because in the aftermath, not only of this tragedy, but of your, let's call it what it is, re-victimization by the system. Mm-hmm. In the aftermath of that, you have been on a mission to, and you got your brother on,
my brother,
on the button right there, and wearing that to these ad hoc house hearings.
I wear it every day. Yeah. Every single day, because I hope I'm going to run into somebody who's going to be able to help me. And if I don't wear it and I walk up on somebody that could help me, they have no idea. But if they see it, they're like, tell me about that. Yeah. You know, that's my hope, that I'm going to bump into the right person that's going to be like, you know what? I'll take up this fight with you.
What is your sense of the South Carolina lawmakers that you've appeared in front of, that you've interacted with? Are they taking this seriously? Do they care? Are they going to fix this system?
Well, I'm not going to paint it with a broad brush, because there are some that I think that really want to make some changes. I think they see that it's not just the problem. It's not so much the quality of the judges that we're putting. I think we have good, qualified, educated judges in place. It's the integrity of the judges that we're putting in place. They take an oath to use their, they have a law degree. They can look at a file. I don't know that some of them that are, how can I say this right? The ones that use the influence, I don't think they want the change. because it helps them, whether it be them or a friend of theirs who has the influence, that throws the influence around. And I don't think anybody wants to throw anybody under the bus because they're afraid, that's a bridge I might burn. And one day I'm going to have to throw water on them flames and crawl back. And are they going to help me, or are they going to blackball me? So I think a lot of them talk a good talk. I think a lot of them think that there's changes that need to be made. Do they actually want to do the work? No. Do they hear you? I think they listen to you. Now, whether or not they're hearing what the issues are, I think a lot of them are they think that we're just backwood people that have unsubstantiated claims that are just unhappy with what has happened to us, and we want to blame somebody. And that's not true.
In your case, you've got a recording of the defendant and his mother discussing the right judge and how they've been told to get it in front of the right judge. I mean,
absolutely.
Does it get any...
And it's not, on my part, it's the criminal court. On other people, it's the family court judges. I mean, it's not just, hey, I'm upset, it's my case. It's throughout, that things just aren't being done right.
Yeah.
And there's no easy way for us to file a grievance, And if we do file a grievance, is anybody really checking it? Is anybody really looking it over and reading it and putting it where it needs to go? And then if it gets to where it needs to go, is anybody really taking the time to, check into their good old buddy?
The Judicial Conduct Committee.
And the bad thing about it is they have always said it's the good old Southern way, the good old, what is it, the good old boy system or something like that. But everybody used to always deny that. And that was like, it's happening out in the open. They don't try to hide it anymore. And it's not a fact of who's the better lawyer, this, that, and other. It's who's the cheater. I mean, you're not lawyering any better than the next one. You're just doing some underhanded stuff. And then having the power, the power to conceal it. So not everybody, not everybody knows the ways to go about finding things out, and who's going to talk to me, and who's going to be honest with me, or who's just going to blow smoke up me to quiet me down or satisfy whatever my question was, and we're going to go on to the next. And are we really going to take into account what this lady just said, what happened to her? Is it going to take, God forbid, something like what happened to my family happening to one of those legislators' families, to where they stand before a committee and they get brushed off like they don't matter? And it's not public. It's not public perception. I'm here. My feet are in the muck. I'm not making it up. I'm telling you what happened. I saw it with my own eyes. I'm not the only one. There's plenty of people that see it. There's plenty of people that are standing beside me and behind me that are victimized too. But do they care? I think in some of their hearts they do, and they want to make a difference. But are we really going to fix the problem? I don't know. I don't see it happening. But hope. Hope. Toby Keith said it the other day on his interview before he died. It's like, how do you get through all this terrible stuff? Faith. Faith. You have to have, I have to have faith in a system that my brother protected for 30 years. But I'm losing that faith. I have faith in my God. I know my brother will get justice one day, because he's going to get the ultimate justice, But we can't just keep victimizing victims over and over and over and making us feel like we have no recourse. We put these people in these positions, you know? We can take them out of them, you know, but we got to make a big enough ruckus and have enough people to know about it. And that's just it. You know, we send them to Columbia. Do we check behind them? Honestly, I didn't, you know, but there's got to be some accountability and there's got to be some kind of consequence. You know, if I did wrong, I would definitely suffer a consequence, you know? But it's like, you know, how many times do you do something from the bench or from the attorney's table? How many times do you get to be crooked and never get a slap on the wrist or never lose your position? It's just like they know there's not going to be a consequence, so they just have free reign over Columbia. And that's not right for the citizens of South Carolina. Whether you're a victim or not, one day you will be a victim. Maybe, hopefully not a crime victim, but you'll be a victim of something that they've done that could have been done different.
Well, Laurie, as you continue to fight this, I hope you'll be willing to come back as we continue to follow both the House and the Senate now taking up judicial reform legislation. You're not only fighting for your brother now, you're fighting for a lot of other folks.
Yes,
and
sir.
I don't think anybody could have said it better than you just did.
Thank you.
I appreciate
Thank you for the opportunity.
No, we appreciate you, Laurie. Laurie Williams, everybody. Thank you once again.
Thank you.